Okay, guys. So now it's time for a little bit of math. We calculated how much water we have going into the system, right? So we have 360 GPH, and we know we had a max of 400 if we use the 9 seconds. Okay, so we have the 400 there, approximately 400. Okay, and then this is the water coming in. Out, we had roughly a 7 GPH, but we know it could range from 5 to I think 15, was it? I don't recall offhand. And then what we want to do per watering is give it roughly 0.25 gallons of water, okay, per watering. That we feel will be the right number for it to trickle down into the soil, down to the bottom of the pot, to roughly lower third of the pot. And we're gonna give it a watering 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day. You can change this number if you find that you need to change that number based off of the way we're testing our soil. But to kind of give you an idea of how I'm building my spreadsheet to do the calculations. Let's start with these first two numbers. So how do we calculate the number of emitters we could fire at one time? Well, we have 360 gallons coming in, and each emitter would give 7. So that allows roughly 51 emitters on one zone. Now, we could have went with 400, and that was our max flow, but that was really a rough number. So I think 360 is a conservative number. I also want to leave room in case someone flushes a toilet in the house, or if someone else wants to shower. And I really don't want to be dependent on no one using any water in my house while the irrigation system is going. I think that's pretty unfair. I think my children are patient enough with how much space I use for the fig trees. So, we go down to 350. That's conservative, 340. And I'm just seeing how my number of my emitters change. Let's go up to 8 gallons per hour, 42. So I think we're flexible. If I went with roughly 40 emitters. Okay, and the reason why I'm going with 40 is because I know, when I did mine, I'm like, let me just do one more. Let me just do one more. So I can really fit 50, but for my planning purposes, I'm going to go with 40. Now, how long are we going to actually water the 8 GPH? How long is the emitter going to fire 8 GPH for? Well, we know it's gallons per hour in the water coming out, and we're looking for hours, so we have the number of gallons. So if we go ahead and take gallons divided by gallons per hour, the gallons cancel out and we're left over with the time. So we have gallons divided by gallons per hour. Okay, that's 0.03 hours. Let's just highlight this red so we kind of see what we're doing there. We're also going to use that one for the right calculation. Okay, so gallons time ran, but that is in hours. So let's go ahead and multiply that by 60, because there are 60 minutes in an hour. So we're going to have to run it for roughly 1.875 minutes. So if I run my 8 gallon per hour emitter for 1.875 minutes, I will deliver 0.25 gallons. All right, guys, thank you very much. So now let's move into the planning stage of this. I appreciate your time while we do these calculations, and if you do have any questions, do comment below. And now let's move to the planning. Now we're going to get into the planning phase. So from our math before that, we know that we need roughly 40 emitters on a line is the most that we could handle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just using Paint in Windows 10. This is really just for me to kind of get a rough idea on the layout when you start to draw out where you're going to put your pots, how you're going to lay your line, a lot of these items come out, a lot of the planning comes out of what type of items you're going to need. So, first we're just going to draw basically my house over here, something like that. And I can add a little bit of finer detail. I know my spigot is over here, and add some commentary. This is going to be approximately 360 GPH. I want that a little bit smaller. These are my own notes. Okay, 360 gallons per hour, and we are going to be using approximately 7 to 8 GPH at each emitter, which equals roughly 40 plus trees. Okay, and then I try to plan out where the sun is. And if you've been growing trees for some time, you really kind of know. The sun path in my backyard kind of goes like this. So if I go ahead and start putting the pots over here, if I start putting pots over around here of the house, then I know that the sun is going to hit all the pots as they go through. So that's kind of what I did for my layout. But now let's go ahead and start doing some planting. So 40 pots. So if I start over here, and I want to go 1, 2, and I don't want to place them too close together. I could do it, just go ahead and take that, copy that, put 2 pots, copy that, 4 pots, 8, 12. Kind of get the idea. Copy, and 24 pots, and I kind of get the idea. I don't need to put all the pots down. I'm going to put some there. I'm going to put some here. And that's really the only organization I did. And you saw in my garden that I had a bunch of pots over here that were just miscellaneously placed. And that was a poor layout. That was kind of a fast path. I ran out of room in my backyard. The kids don't play with their swing set yet. They still want to keep it. So, of course, we're going to keep it. They come before my fig trees, believe it or not. So, that's kind of the idea. Now that we have our basic path, we can start saying, okay, how are we going to run our lines? Well, we are going to eventually we're basically going to run a pipe over here, from here, and then I'm just going to go straight across here, bring it up a little bit, and then go across here. Now, this is what we want to do, essentially. But we can't do this because if we ran a line from here to here, and then another one to here, these are all going to be on the same zones. And we already can find that we cannot run 80 pots. Again, I'm just using the assumption here that I drew 40 pots here and 40 pots here. So that's 80 pots, and we would have a deficiency of water. So we cannot do that. We need to run 2 different zones. So that means we are going to need to install some type of a box here that will house our manifold. And what a manifold does is it splits the water into different sections. So hypothetically, if I was going to build a manifold, I could do something like that. And then I could run 1. And this is very, very crude, guys. 2, 3. And then basically I would take my water system and plug it into a manifold. And if these names sound confusing, don't worry about it. Call it a widget. It's really simple, and we can go through the stages on how to build a manifold. My manifold, I think, cost me about $1.50 to build. The valves cost roughly $12 a piece. The valve is what opens and shuts on each one of these. So we could go ahead and put that in there now. Do a little valve there, valve here, valve there, and we're just going to put valves. Okay, and then we know our valves are there. So the water is going to come in here. It's going to go into the manifold. The manifold is going to distribute the water into the different valves. Now, when a valve opens up, just think about it as a faucet. When this faucet opens up, water will flow through. When this one opens up, water will flow through. And now we could see the progress of the water. So we'll have this one come out here. And then we'll have this one come out here. And then finally, we'll have a third come out here. Okay. And essentially, this is now a zone. We have zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. Now, now that we have our planning down, we have to kind of think, okay, well, what are we going to use here? Should we use PVC hose? Should we use black tubing? Should we use 1/4 inch size, 3/4 inch size? And we'll go into a little more of that perhaps in the next segment. We'll talk about size of tubing. But to keep it simple and you want to skip the next segment, that's fine. This is really going to be 3/4 inch tubing that I'm using. And then what I decided to do is run a thinner tubing. Use a different color just to kind of highlight it. Then I ran I'm sorry, let me go back. Then I ran the 3/4 inch tubing straight down the middle of the pots. And I ran the 3/4 inch tubing straight down the middle of the pots. And essentially the same thing here. I basically ran the 3/4 inch tubing around. I didn't make it a T, and it didn't connect. But that's basically what I did. And then what I did is I went ahead and ran from that 3/4 inch tubing. I ran lines to each pot and then connected the emitter. Same thing here, all the way down. And the same thing here. There's a pot there, hypothetically pot here, pot here, pot here. But I would go ahead and ignore this zone. I did not do a very thorough job with that zone, and it was just really a quick hodgepodge. All right, so we're going to ignore that zone for now. Okay, so that's basically what I did. And let's take a break, and then we'll go into tubing size and why I decided to use 3/4 inch tubing and what have you. Before we move on to the next step of talking about tubing, I forgot to mention one more important piece of this layout. The next part that we need to put on here is our measurements. We need to start calculating the length from the valve to the first pot, and then from this pot all the way down, and what have you. So I have to have already done the calculations, but if you don't, you should definitely grab a tape measure or some type of a measuring system, a track ruler or what have you, and start measuring the lengths of this tubing. So I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of numbers. I know that this run is roughly 40 feet. I know this run over here is 60 feet, and then I happen to know the length all the way down to the bottom of the pots. But we can do some math. We know that each pot is 16 inches. So if we do 16 inches, and I have 20 pots going down the row. So 20 pots and 2 rows on each side. So it's 20 pots times 20 pots. That's roughly 320 inches. But we actually should keep some space between it. So between the pots. And that is a very important stomping my foot. Make sure you have some space between the trees. My trees are way too close. When they get bigger, they grow into each other. It doesn't allow for enough sun penetration for all the leaves. It allows for moisture to linger between the leaves. Pests get in there. Then you start to get some leaf drop, and you don't want pests in your plants. And then the figs will not ripen as well if they're not in that direct sun. So let's just do a little more math here real fast. So let's just say we're going to keep a foot between each tree. So that's 12 inches, and that's still not enough, but we have a foot. So let's just say 16 inches plus 12 inches. Just add another 4 inches, so make that 16 inches, 16 inches. So 32 inches times 20 is 640 inches divided by 12, and that's 53 feet. So I need 53.3. So we'll go ahead and round up to that. So here we're going to have 54 feet over here. That means another 54 feet over here. Okay, so right there we have 40 feet over here, 60 feet over here. That's 100 feet plus another 108. So that's 208 feet of this type of tubing. So 208 feet of main line tubing. Okay. Next step is we have water going from the main line to the drip emitters. That's your feeding tubing. At least that's what I call it. I don't know if that's the correct name, but that's what it